The XWM turret. A large tower with the rebuild system as its main mechanic, its top half is a monstrous DPS of 121k. As of writing this, John, don't make this outdated, I'm begging you. And the ability to ignore its only resistance, at the drawback of not being able to be buffed by support towers. The XWM has had quite a rocky history, starting out god-awful in the Endless update, only for John to suddenly buff it into a late-game menace that has dominated the meta since. Since then, John has attempted to nerf this tower while keeping it relevant to nearly no avail. Until now, with the addition of dynamic price scaling and having top paths ignore bullet resistance only manifest in its final upgrade. Which also set the community on fire. People crashing the hell out over this new change or making each XWM's max upgrade cost a few thousand more buckaroos, saying it killed the tower and made her useless. Now, I'm sorry here to dispute that in the video format, say that XWM is still good, and why this nerf is actually quite healthy for her in the meta, changing her role slightly in modes such as Endless and Expert while still keeping her viable. Now note, I am quite the TDX casual. I completely forgot to play the game for several months, so I missed the entire winter event, Valentine's event, and the anniversary party. But I'm level 32 and an avid XWM user, so that counts for something, right? This is all just my opinion and you're free to disagree. Other than that, let's get into it. She's an incredible generalist whose main weakness is how she can't be affected by buffs like EDG and Commander, or being healed by Medic, which incentivizes putting her away from your main group of towers since she's a huge tower that takes up tons of space. Unfortunately, XWM is a one-role-fits-all tower. She has good DPS, rapid fire, an incredible range, and her lack of support buffs and healing is a non-issue, since she can just respawn herself 3 times. And if you're planning to use XWM as your main DPS, you probably aren't gonna be relying on support towers a whole lot. This made her incredibly brain dead to play. And the moment I got her, I soloed Legacy Expert with relative ease without any power-ups or the like due to how wild her DPS is. If you got down enough XWMs, nothing could stand in your way. Having all 40 XWMs meant a consistent juicy 44,000 DPS total just from the XWMs alone. And since she could rebuild herself, you didn't need to do much micro to replace them if they fell in battle. No need to worry about rapidly selling a tower before the boss obliterates it from existence with their massive nuclear attack. So, how does John fix this? Via dynamic price scaling, and I think, although it isn't the best fix for her, it's the best way to do it without outright changing her whole flow, helping the meta and game balance. Let me explain why. Having XWM's max price increase with every XWM you place down makes XWM less and less cost efficient every time you want to place her down. This means you don't want to solely rely on her for your DPS output unless you're in Endless Wave 9 gazillion or something and every enemy gets a bajillion cash so you can max it out. But even then, if you're playing solo, spending $431,000 on a single XWM for 120k DPS. That's ridiculous, as it's only $392 for every single piece of DPS. Ranger is more cost effective than that. This essentially guts XWM's viability over time, as more and more cash is sunk into making a single one that will most likely be placed in less good spots where you can't maximize her range as XWM takes up a ton of space already. An XWM purchase when you already have a couple slowly makes it worse and worse, and that causes you to think, When does it become not worth it? And what could you do about it? XWM turret's dynamic price scaling incentivizes you to not entirely rely on the turret for late game. Unless you're in Endless. But besides that, XWM turret's cost efficiency falters incredibly with more and more of them, resulting in you being encouraged to not use her for your main DPS. She can do everything, but at the cost of space, time with the rebuild mechanic, and later on, your wallet. You no longer want to just mindlessly spam her anywhere you can place her, and instead rely on other towers like Railgunner, either Juggernauts, or Warship to dish out more cost-effective DPS, with XWM being a backup source of damage for enemies resistant to your main DPS decides to pull out. I think this role of secondary backup DPS fits XWM far better than her being the standard to use. It fits with her gimmick of being reliable and having high survivability. Calamity decided to nuke your entire army with his bullshit Thanos snap attack? No problem. Your XWMs can still keep the pressure on while you rebuild your losses. It also fits even further with how she can't be supported by other towers. Since you're already encouraged to put her far away from other tower clusters to bait attacks and keep her from clogging up EBJ or commander space with her fat turret. Lastly, she now only gains ignoring bullet resistance at max level, making sure she really only is as effective as she is for late game since a 4-2 XWM is really not gonna cut it for anything besides mauling Artemis and VX Drone in expert mode. It really makes you wanna think if you wanna dive all in on XWM turret and at what point for her to not be a drain on your cash. Is there still a problem with XWM? Yeah, definitely. She's still kinda unbalanced for Endless mode as stated earlier, where you literally get infinite money in the later waves. So you're still obliterating all your enemies with that insane 44k DPS. Her rebuilds still outweigh basically any other tower and makes her survivability insane. But those fixes would be hard to implement with like a single coder. Hire more coders, John Roblox. Either needing to rework the tower completely, or a total change in XWM's design philosophy. I think one of the biggest reasons why XWM is still unmatched is the sheer amount of one-shot moves bosses have. Eradicator MK4, Eradicator MK1C, Apex Predator, Calamity, and all their variants all have hard to see coming annihilation moves that can wipe out hundreds of thousands of dollars in an instant. Calamity and Eradicator MK4 being the most egregious examples. Rest in peace to all the warships killed by this monster. It's easy to see why a tower that can just revive itself if it wants free of charge is so widely used. Medic was meant to be the fix to this, but you can't heal someone up to full health if they suddenly just get reduced to a bloodstain in an instant, now can you? I think expert mode's bosses are a massive step up in the right direction. Their moves either being far-reaching AoE that does decent enough damage to mount the pressure on you, or their single or small targeted annihilation moves doing the massive damage over time, rather than just one-tapping you with an artillery shell to allow for medics to actually do their job. But unless John Roblox decides to rework Endless mode's bosses to fit a similar design philosophy, or XWM is overhauled entirely, XWM is still going to be the queen of Endless.